Government Affairs at the Bend Chamber. Hey, how many of the Leadership Bend folks are in the room tonight? Give me a shout out. That's right. I see several of you. And how many alumni are in the room tonight? Any alumni? That's right. I see several hands go up. Hey, just a real quick announcement before we get started. All of you have a flyer out there in front of you in case you're wondering. One of the most rockin' events coming up just for our community is a Taste of Leadership Bend, put on exclusively by the class of 2014 for you as a community member. Take a look, it's coming right around the corner, May 29th, half-day event, and includes catered networking. Did you know you could also still go to the catered networking event for the same $30 and all proceeds go to scholarships? So maybe a couple of people running for office, things like that might want to show up, alumni and whatnot. So that's what that is in front of you. If you haven't already signed up for a wonderful invitation to Bend's premier gala, you'll want to make sure you check out the Sage Awards this coming Friday night. You can find that on our website as well. Citizen of the Year, Business of the Year, and more. Another quick item to save the date. Our first ever State of the Community Address is coming up on June 12th. It used to be that we'd have the state of the city, the state of the county, and then the state of the state of the state of the state of the, and in this case, we all collaborated and agreed that we'd do a State of the Community address. So watch for that on June 12th. It'll be refreshing, lively, and engaging, we assure you. No boring PowerPoints is all I have to say, right? And coming up next month for What's Brewing, we have a real opportunity to meet and strategize our plans for issues and opportunities in the legislative year ahead with our own delegates. That's right, the first Tuesday of each month is this town hall. So on June 3rd, expect to be here and have a conversation that's truly about strategizing, get a peek at some of the bills that are beginning to be drafted, as well as find out what we might need to pay attention to for the November elections and beyond. So that's the next What's Brewing. And also, your second sheet of paper in front of you under the Taste of Leadership Bend flyer. I need my own van up here. This is the taste flyer. Right afterwards is this other sheet. And it's 2 pages, front and back. Take it with you, check it out. Don't expect you to read it tonight, but it's a part of what set the table for tonight's conversation. This one sheet of 2 sides, Deschutes County Committee on Recreation Assets. Anybody recognize this? Truly, there was a committee that set out with Senator Wyden in June of 2008 to take a look. You're awesome, Jason, thank you. Woo-hoo. In fact, speaking of, let's get it up for Volcanic Theater Pub, right? These guys are amazing, all the things they do to get us set up. Isn't this a cool venue? How many of you are here for the first time? Oh yeah, baby! How fun, right? Yeah! I know. Where else does a panelist get to actually have a beer while they're hanging out, right? Anyway, give it a look. There are truly opportunities for us to take a look at what kinds of recreational assets, and it's a parlay off the conversation that City Club had at the end of April, intended to take a look at what are we doing with our trails, what's next for our recreational opportunities physically, from the mountain to fishing, I mean, you name it. Whereas today, we've segued the conversation to take a look at how does this all tie in to the economic growth factor from business and manufacturing and retail and products and innovation. It goes on and on. And so soon you'll find out how these two tie together. But I tell you, this is a piece of gold in your hands when you go to take it with you. And last but not least, the reason that we are here, as I said, economic growth in the outdoor industry. It's truly happening, it's here. And Central Oregon is becoming a bit of a mecca Are we ready? How are we going to handle it? Is this, I hate to say the term, bubble and burst again? I don't think so. And I have some folks here with us tonight that I think can share with you otherwise, because why do you live here?
Lifestyle.
Lifestyle.
Beer.
Beer. That's considered an outdoor recreation to some, right? Lots of those reasons. So we have a great conversation ahead with us tonight. A big thank you to our sponsors, Miller Lumber and SunWest Builders, for making sure we can have these monthly town halls at a reasonable rate, give you a drink ticket, and have a great time. So on that note, before we begin, I'd like to share a little bit of background about those that are here with us tonight. So on our panel here behind me, actually, Gary Braceland, I just have to tell you, you were one of my saviors at the inn. It was a beautiful conversation that took us to a level that I know in this room we're looking forward to having. Gary Braceland is the founder and president of Bend Outdoor Works, an incubator, and I think a few of you here in the room know him, but a few more are about to get to tonight. So thank you, Gary Braceland, for being here tonight. Absolutely, yeah. Carolyn Egan, you hopped right on the bandwagon when you heard the subject was coming around. You even wrote me from Florida while you were on vacation. I was really impressed. And I love that Ben is really looking at the industry, and as Ben's business advocate, you have a few things not only to share here tonight, but you want to get into this conversation with your community and find out how to advocate. So a big welcome to Carolyn Egan. She's doing a great job. And then not to confuse your Carolyns, sweet, no, never mind, that's you with the headset. Carolyn Meese, you have traveled all the way in from Portland as well, all the way, but you have the joy of family that live here and enjoy the quality lifestyle. Carolyn Meese is our Bend business developer for Business Oregon. So not only is she here to share a few things that she's observing in all the different kinds of industry out there, she wants to hear from you. Tonight, don't be afraid to throw up your hand. Make sure that I or Todd get to you with the mics and talk with us and talk with your panelists. So a big welcome to Carolyn Meese for coming over and joining us tonight. Scott Allen, as you know, CEO with Hydro Flask, has hit the world with this amazing product that people have an affinity for. Well, that's a part of what happened. People had an experience here, and now here we are, and Scott Allen can share a little bit about that, as well as the outdoor roundtable that's out there. Thank you for taking time out of your evening and coming to Plain and having fun with us tonight as well, Scott Allen. Big round of applause for him. And last but not least, we really had an amazing moment happen when Ron Miller connected me with Todd Davidson, the CEO of Travel Oregon. Gotta tell you, that was one of the most inspirational phone calls I've had in a while for how we all can work together and bring the tourism and travel industry together with the outdoor recreation industry, and specifically how it relates to Central Oregon. So Todd, before you come up, let me share a couple things about you if I could, because you're our king cheese tonight. So throughout your career, Todd's attentiveness to Oregon's travel and tourism industry has been fueled by his belief in the power of this industry to boost economies and generate jobs that can't be outsourced. Todd was appointed Executive Director of the Oregon Tourism Commission, DBA Travel Oregon, in June of '96, named Chief Executive Officer in September of '04, and then by December of '10, the Secretary of Commerce appointed Davidson to the U.S. Travel and Tourism Advisory Board, which it is this week. I hope you'll share a little bit about. And in January of 2012, was appointed to serve a 2-year term as chair of the board. Todd also serves on the board of the U.S. Travel Association, the National Council of State Tourism Directors, and the Western States Tourism Policy Council. But I will also share this. He loves Central Oregon. So our moderator extraordinaire, please help me welcome Todd Davidson.
Thanks, Jamie, very much. You know, I do love Central Oregon, and I don't love it alone. My wife loves Central Oregon. We have been coming over here for as long as I can remember. In fact, I was born and raised in Iowa, moved out here in 1985. Youngest son was at the time about 4 years old. By the time he turned 5, we hiked the Green Lakes Trail up to Moraine Lake and had a beautiful view of South Sister. First backpacking trip we ever took in the state of Oregon. So Central Oregon has a very, very special place not only in my heart, but in my family's heart as well. So rest assured that this is very much a labor of love for me to be able to come over here tonight. It turned out to be fairly clandestine that I would be able to be here with you though, because this is National Travel and Tourism Week. And we had been planning at Travel Oregon to do a statewide media tour. And we began actually the end of last week with some of the media in Portland that weren't able to meet with us this week. But this morning we had an opportunity to meet with some of the broadcast stations in Portland, jump in the car and come over here to Bend. And it was in the midst of that Ron Miller introduced me to Jamie, and she said, would you be able to do this? And I said, well, it kind of depends when it is. And she said, well, it's Tuesday evening. And I said, that's kind of uncanny because I arrive in Bend Tuesday evening and I would love to do this. Then we got to talking a little bit about this panel. And I bring this up only because some of you may be wondering, we're talking about outdoor manufacturing, we're talking about whether or not we're business friendly, business ready. What the heck is a tourism guy doing moderating our panel if we're talking about business, and we're talking about industry, and we're talking about being ready for that kind of corporate happening here in Central Oregon? Let me just remind you all that at the national level, travel and tourism is now a $2 trillion industry and employs roughly 14 million Americans. 1 in 8 Americans are employed in the travel and tourism industry right now. Last year, 2013, travel and tourism became America's largest services export. And for an industry that makes up 8% of all American exports, 26% of all export growth, everything we ship overseas, 26% of that growth came from travel and tourism. 1 out of every 4 new export dollars came from the travel and tourism industry. Here in Oregon, it's a $9.6 billion industry. It employs nearly 94,000 Oregonians, generates about $400 million a year in state and local tax revenue. And here in Central Oregon, and forgive me, I wrote these down because they're new. These literally just came out last week. Here in Central Oregon, visitors spent nearly $500 million last year, $496 million, supported over 5,700 jobs and generated over $24 million in state and local tax revenue. Again, you may be saying, that's wonderful. What does it have to do with the topic tonight? What I just shared with you are the direct economic impacts of travel and tourism. That's what it means when visitors are coming here and spending their dollars in hotels and motels and bed and breakfast and vacation rentals and restaurants and brew pubs and retail shops and with outfitter guides, movie theaters, you name it. That's the direct economic impact. What's just as direct an economic impact, but is an often misunderstood or misinterpreted economic impact is this. When visitors come to Oregon, they don't just have that immediate direct economic impact in hotels and restaurants and outfitter guides. They become, it's kind of in a theory of mine, they become a little bit more Oregonian in nature so that when they return home, whether it's to Manhattan or Miami or Munich, they're just a little bit more Oregonian. And what I mean by that is this. They start looking for Oregon products. They look for that made in Oregon label. They look for Oregon wine on the wine list. They look for an Oregon tap handle in their favorite pub back home. And they're able to find them now. And what we've learned is that 60% of our visitors are doing exactly that. They're returning home and they're now buying Oregon products because they have an affinity for this place that they did not have before they came here. And not only in our wines and our microbrews and our cheeses and our chocolates, it's also in our processed goods, our manufactured goods, processed agricultural products, those things that are part of their Oregon experience that they can attach back to this place, just kind of rise in stature for them. Bit of a halo effect, and we see it happening. The other thing that's really interesting, and the other reason I think it's appropriate that you've got the tourism guy helping moderate this panel tonight is we've also learned that visitors, once they've traveled to a place, not only have an affinity for the place, an affinity for the products that come from that place, but they now start wondering about that place as the next location for their business expansion, or the next place for them to relocate their business. And it happens. We've seen roughly, on average, we see roughly 2 to 3% of our visitors every year that indicate an interest in moving their business here. But 2 to 3% of nearly 30 million visitors is hundreds of thousands of leads for folks that are out there saying, yeah, I'm interested. Alana Houston is the vice chair of the Oregon Tourism Commission. You know her as the CEO of the Central Oregon Visitors Association. I have heard her speak on several occasions about a study that was done here in Central Oregon, specifically about businesses that had relocated here during the 80s and 90s, and found that a huge percentage, a vast majority of these businesses had first come here as visitors and then chose to move their business here. We know, and that trend continues to happen. So that's why I am so excited to be able to be here with you tonight, because there's a nexus between the travel and tourism industry and what the folks that are up here on the panel are doing. One other place that I would draw your attention, we just recently launched the 7 Wonders of Oregon campaign. What's beautiful about that campaign is not only that it celebrates the incredible natural beauty of the state of Oregon, but we feel we have a right to get a little provincial when we talk about the state of Oregon. And by that I mean we're going to use every opportunity we can to showcase everything we can about Oregon. So the people in the ads are all Oregonians. They are not professional stars. They were not cast for any other reason besides the fact that they have an affinity for that place. They love Smith Rock. They love Crater Lake. We might have wanted to showcase a parent and child, a couple of guys, a couple off doing something else. But at the end of the day, they were Oregonians that had great passion for this place. The other thing is that if you look at those ads very closely, you will see that the folks are wearing Now clothing, N-A-U, Now clothing, or Danner boots, or using polar gear, polar hats, polar backpacks, whatever that may be. Very deliberate on our part to showcase Oregon manufacturers in Travel Oregon advertising, because we want folks to know that Oregon is the very proud home of these companies. Is it subliminal? Sure. We're not shouting it out that, this is a Now jacket or whatever, but it's there. And what's cool about it is that Now, for example, has now developed an entire line of clothing that they call the 7 Wonders line. And if you go to the Now Clothing website, you can buy the clothes that were worn by the folks and other clothing that was inspired by the 7 Wonders campaign. So this is the way it should work. If we're spending millions of dollars advertising the state of Oregon, we want to be able to create that kind of synergy. That's why I was really excited when Jamie called and asked, would you be interested in being involved in this panel today? And it's because the folks up here are doing yeoman's work to make sure that Oregon is being presented in a very captivating way through their products, perhaps through Hydro Flask, or through the work of marketing the state of Oregon for business recruitment opportunities. So thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. I'm thrilled. Can't think of a better place I'd rather be on a Tuesday night than here in Central Oregon, having a beer with you guys and being able to have this conversation. So with that, what I'd like to do is ask our panelists to just take a couple of minutes. Jamie did a nice job of kind of queuing us up a little bit, but take a couple of minutes if you would and just tell us a little bit more about you and specifically kind of your passion for this topic here tonight. And if we can, Gary, we'll just start with you and we'll just move straight across.
Gary, will you please first go ahead and grab that mic off of there?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead and completely grab it off. Unwind it, and we'll use it to pass along over to Carolyn as well.
Perfect.
There you go, thank you.
Us outdoor people are a little bit more under the radars. Quite used to being on stage here. My name's Gary Braceland. I've been in the outdoor industry in one form or another for probably 25 plus years. 22 of them from here in Bend. I've had to be somewhat creative to make a living in the outdoor industry in Bend, and that's always seemed kind of strange to me. What I do for a living is I am co-founder of GB2 Agency, and I'm the sales strategist. I help companies build their global distribution. I'm also founder of a new incubator in town called Bend Outdoor Works. And Bend Outdoor Works was kind of formed from several of us being involved with the Outdoor Roundtable and seeing a need to give EDCO and Bend and these other people tools in their tool belt to recruit companies to Bend and to build the infrastructure to support an outdoor industry here in Bend. And our original focus was bringing companies to Bend, but then we saw that there's, we have to take care of home first. And there's a lot of companies that are right here in Bend that can become viable companies in the outdoor industry. And that we wanted to help them first by providing mentorship and shared resources to make them successful to where they are rent-paying, salary-paying companies, and then later to become a resource for companies that want to move here to find the infrastructure and resources that we already have here. And that we need more companies like Hydro Flask, Kealoha, and other companies here to help make Bend a hub of the outdoor industry.
Thank you, Gary. Be sure you hold the mic closely, pull her over the cord there. There you go. Right. Keep it up close to your mouth if you could, please, when you speak tonight. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thank you. Nice job, Gary. So I'm Carolyn Egan. I'm the city's business advocate, and for those of you, some of you may know, some of you may not know, is the city of Bend has chosen to do economic development a little bit differently. And my disclaimer for that is we can do that because we have EDCO. So I don't want you to think that I'm leaving EDCO out of this conversation at all. Robin's here, and we'll grab her into the conversation as we need to. But from the city of Bend's perspective, we're looking at what is really two things. Where are the industries that the city can really impact that growth? And you've seen it across Central Oregon with how we can support the development of the entrepreneur ecosystem. And we'd like to be able to apply what we've learned from the development of those software and tech companies to other industries. So maybe it's aviation, perhaps it's outdoor. Actually, outdoor is the next one on our list. So we're really seeing how can we focus on these industries and really lend what the city normally brings to things like streets and sewer and water to the development of sectors. For those of you who survived the recession here and have come out of it, you'll know that the employment in leisure and hospitality was the first one to come out of the recession. That's where we saw our initial business growth, our employment growth. And so when I came into the position, I said, how do we draft off that growth, that employment growth, to figure out how do we get jobs that are not just at restaurants and not just at hotels, which are all terrific jobs and we need them all in our economy, but how do we add manufacturing jobs? How do we add salesperson jobs? How do we add CEO jobs? Drafting off that travel industry we have here. The other piece is that what's changing in economic development is not just the difference from trying to recruit businesses from other places to come be here now, where now we're trying to grow industries, but we're also trying to attract talent. And so whether it's EDCO teaming up with Alana and Kova or City of Bend teaming up with Visit Bend, we're trying to figure out how do we turn those people who come in to race for Cascade Cycling Classic and the people who come in to do the next triathlon into residents, into business owners, and really partnering with that, how do we grow talent here? And what we've found is that there's so many partners at the table that we're trying to figure out how to use everybody effectively. We had a really successful show at the Outdoor Retailer. Outdoor Retailer is one of the large outdoor trade show that happens twice every year. And if the city of Bend had gone to market by itself, it would have been a $20,000 investment of your business license fees that could have potentially just gone into a big hole. We may not have actually talked to a company, we may not have gotten one lead from that $20,000 investment. What we did is we partnered with Business Oregon, we partnered with our local companies, and we tried to figure out how to go to market there in a way that the industry would actually respond. And so between EDCO and the city, Business Oregon, and several of our companies, namely Roughware, who hosted the event, we were able to bring Bend to Salt Lake City and the outdoor industry. We got more leads out of that cooperative investment than we ever could have if we had a big City of Bend booth at the trade show. So we're learning how to do things differently in economic development with the help of the outdoor industry. And I'm really excited about where we're going to go from there.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Good evening. I'm Carolyn Meese. Excuse me. I'm Business Development Officer with Business Oregon, the Oregon Business Development Department. The way that we are set up, just as kind of background, is we have 9 business development officers around the state. I have a region, which is basically Multnomah, Hood River, and Wasco counties, and then Clark Jackson, Clark, raise your hand, is my colleague here in Central Oregon. We then each have industries that we're lead of for around the state, and the industry that I'm lead on is outdoor gear and activewear. So I kind of have the best industry around the state. And it is a statewide industry. Obviously, the biggest concentrations of the industry is in Portland and is in Bend, but we have Sunday Afternoons, which does protective clothing in Talent, Oregon. We have Winner's Choice Bowstrings, who does some of the world's best bowstrings in John Day, Oregon. Sport Hill in Eugene. So the industry is all around the state. And what my goal has been is, my role is working primarily with existing businesses and helping them get stronger and grow, and then also working with communities and helping them as to how they want to make that growth as well. As Carolyn mentioned, we did partner with the Outdoor Retailer, and it's something that we want to continue to do. We haven't really been able to do a statewide team on this industry. Again, we have, for example, we have a Team Oregon on food processing, and they take communities that are looking at recruiting businesses as well as businesses that are looking at growing to different trade shows. We have some great opportunities right now with some federal funding to do some international trade shows. Last year we did ISPO, which is a sporting goods show in Munich, and this year we're doing a show called Outdoor, and it's in Friedrichshafen in Germany in July. There's actually funds. What we're going to do is have a booth there and have companies apply to go with us, 5 companies from around the state that can actually use the space in the booth and not have to pay the $20,000 for a booth. Because we haven't found yet in our shows here, in the outdoor gear shows, we haven't really found good value for having a booth of our own, because who we want to talk to are the businesses, and these are mostly shows that are coming for buying. We work in 5 key industries. For us, they're lumber, timber products, outdoor gear, high tech, advanced manufacturing, and I'm missing one. Can't remember. But who's not on that list is tourism, because we have Travel Oregon doing it, and is not the commodities food, which is Department of Ag, but they're obviously our close state partners, and we work together on those as well. I was laughing. I did bring some handouts because we do have some funds available to help companies go to some of these trade shows. And our goal is really to help companies and communities grow, and the more we can figure out ways to partner together, the better off we are. Being able to partner with City of Bend and EDCO and Roughwear and Outdoor Retailer, we were a small part of that, but again, the ability to do that together helped build out all of our funds. And so we're looking for more ways to do that, so I get to come and work with you guys and be here at this table, as well as participate as often as I can in other activities.
Thank you, Carolyn. You brought potential funds with you. Yes, we noticed that.
Money talks, yes. So yeah, I'm Scott Allen with Hydro Flask, and as you guys may know, we make performance outerwear for your favorite beverage, which gives us an opportunity to kind of play in a couple of different markets. Outdoor is our core. It's where we started. My background's more high tech, so I've spent 20 some odd years in Silicon Valley doing mobile ventures and other kind of high tech, and about 25 years playing outdoors. So the last 2 years I finally got to combine those together and work and play kind of in the outdoor industry. This is something that's really interesting topic. I mean, coming from Silicon Valley, you can see the cluster, at its most refined form. You see education and industry and talent and capital and service providers all coming together and creating really efficient, critical mass of iterations of companies and opportunities. So what we're talking about here is how does Bend take what it has to offer and start down that path. For us, it's a really critical topic. Our growth rate means that we have to get talent into our organization, and there's times when we have to get specific, talent, maybe executive level talent, to leave well-paying jobs where they're doing great and their families all settled, and uproot and come to work for Hydro Flask. So, we look at what do we have to offer. It's more than just our company, it's our community. And it's great how we're rising up. I think it's the type of thing that you could leave to chance, and it may happen, it may not. But by putting effort into it, by having these kind of conversations, we learn, we get better. And there's some great kind of stories and successes that have happened along the way for us, and I think for other companies that are participating in this. So look forward to the discussion tonight.
Great. Well, thank you all. I appreciate that introduction. It seems to me that in order to have a conversation about are we ready, we should probably start by taking a little bit of a look back at maybe why some of you are here in the first place. And so if I can, I'd like to start by just asking a question of Gary, working with several small businesses from an incubator standpoint, as well as your own interests, and Scott with Hydro Flask, really kind of that quintessential question, why are you here? Why have you chosen Central Oregon as a place to land these outdoor recreation companies that you're both part of, or endeavors that you're part of? Gary?
Yeah, I mean, why not Bend? It's a great place to live. Actually, my wife picked Bend because it was a lot like Montana back 22 years ago, or whatever. It's the lifestyle. People move here because they want to do in an afternoon or a weekend what people in New York City spend their whole week's vacation to go do. We, people come here and shoot catalogs, have their sales meetings here. It's a great place to enjoy the outdoors and to make that transition to be an outdoor industry. In the 90s, I was working with the company Morrow Snowboards, who wanted to move over here in the worst way. We just didn't have the infrastructure at the time to support them. And actually, I ran an R&D facility out of my office here in Bend when I first moved here for them. And I remember the first, when all of a sudden we could fly to Seattle for the day and do business. I mean, that changed my world. Originally you had to fly to Portland to get anywhere. But I mean, it's quite simple. It's the lifestyle that's here. And Scott talks about having to bring talent to the region. I mean, there's a lot of talent that's here that's kind of hidden away, but it's reps, it's freelance designers, it's people that can bring their job with them. And they've chosen Bend already as a place to live. There's definitely certain talent that you have to recruit outside of the area, but who wouldn't come to Bend in the outdoor industry? I mean, it's a no-brainer. So we're all here to enjoy what our passions are.
Scott?
Yeah.
We got his mic up, okay, Jason? He's got it by his mouth, just like you want.
I think it's working now. Yeah, so for me, it's not always easy to answer this question because it involves giving some credit to my ex-wife, which does not come naturally. She picked Ben, and for me, I went along with it because I would take my kids, I'd pick them up on the peninsula in the Bay Area at 3 o'clock on a Friday and drive through San Francisco and over the Bay Bridge and all the way up 80 so that they can go ski at Squaw Valley, and I could snowboard and be with my friends, and they can have an outdoor experience. And that's what you do when you live that lifestyle. You have 6-7 hours or sometimes more in a car so you can get outdoors. And I want my kids to get on skis early and not suffer the humiliation I did in college when you get on skis and you're full grown. So, that was it for me. It was kind of a getaway place, a place that I can have access to, and going from there. The founder of Hydro Flask, the epiphany he had was in Hawaii, and it was during, there's this movement towards, hey, reusable, single-use plastic water bottles are not great for the environment, you know, plastic island in the ocean, all this. So people are saying, let's do what's right. Let's buy a reusable water bottle. Then he noticed, you know, they're sweating, they're not keeping things warm. And well, some are getting recalled for being toxic with BPA. And he's like, why can't we come up with a better solution? And I think, you know, in 2008, 2009, Ben was very affordable place to be, a bit more mature in terms of infrastructure. I think he had family here, so low startup costs, and he just got it going. You know, scraped up some money, helped design the product, get it produced, start selling it at Portland Saturday Market, Deschutes County Fair, and it just really took off. And now we look back, it's like, wow, you know, I mentioned it, Todd, it's like if this was in the city of industry outside LA, it'd be the type of things like, okay, how do we move this to Bend? Because this is really the type of authentic business that services the microbrewery market, the natural foods market, outdoor retailers like Dan at Pine Mountain Sports, for example, the coffee roasters, like it should be a place like that. You know, it's the type of thing we as employees can take our products out and you know, take advantage of what they deliver and really experience what our customers deliver and stay close to that core. Ben's perfect for us. It's really been kind of the two stories there.
You know, what's interesting is you've also both mentioned quality of life. And quality of life comes up a ton whenever you talk to any industry, I think. They talk about that quality of life for their employees' families, et cetera. That's what they're looking for. Sometimes that distills down to safety, public schools, and commute time. Sometimes it means something like you said, Gary. It's like, why wouldn't you want to be here in Central Oregon when you can do in an afternoon what some people will spend, you know, an entire week's vacation trying to do? Help us better understand. When you think of quality of life, and I want to throw this out to the whole panel, try to make that tangible, because part of this is, are we ready? So if we're thinking about are we ready, how do you position quality of life, and how do you maintain that quality of life so that you can draw the talent, recruit the business, and have a place where businesses can grow and thrive? Carolyn, can we start with you? Which Carolyn? I see, this one just saw the eye contact, so yeah, go ahead, Carolyn. We'll start with you. I know you're not necessarily Central Oregon, you're really representing that sector, but you're here.
I'm here, and I can do it about Central Oregon, but also about Oregon, because quality of life for each person and each business is a little bit different. What people are looking for and what they want. We were working with a company out of New York, and they were really more concerned about five-star restaurants and the symphony than snowboarding and those kind of things. So, but when the true companies, when the companies like Scott was talking about are that make sense here and make business sense here, it's a great place to be, and a great way to be looking at how you want to do that. My family, I'm one of those kind of families that my great-grandparents homesteaded in North Central Oregon back in the late 1800s. So I've never really known anything but Oregon, and have always spent time in Central Oregon, and always spent time with the different activities that we can have. And so for businesses, when you can bring a business person or bring a business here and let them experience it through a different activity or through a different experience, then they seem to, again, gravitate here as to trying to work towards, if there's an opportunity, that they look towards coming here.
How about you, Carolyn?
So from the city's perspective, I think quality of life is maybe a little bit different, because we're trying to figure out with each migration of people who have moved to Bend, how the definition of quality of life changes. So for folks who got here in the 80s, what they expect from quality of life might be very different from folks who got here in 2010. And so we're constantly trying to figure out what are the commonalities between each of those migrations to Bend to what is quality of life. But mostly it comes down from where we're sitting, and I'm going to really distill it, it's going to sound simplistic, but it's about affordability, it's about being able to do what you want to be able to do, and it's about making this be a place where your kids come back from college, or maybe could actually go to college and stay here. So it's about, for families or for, with each migration, that definition of quality of life has changed a little bit and matured a little bit. And 5 years ago, if we were sitting here talking about quality of life, we would say we need more airline service, we need a 4-year university, We need better traffic, better ways to get in and out of here. And so many of those goals have been accomplished for the whole region. And so now we're really looking towards the next 10 years that says, how do we maintain quality of life? And you're asking, how does affordable housing mix with development of the outdoor industry? And how do we keep those service sector, if we're gonna say we're gonna build off our tourism industry, off our leisure and hospitality wages, we're gonna have a way for those people to actually live in the town that they're serving. And so it really gets to be to some of the questions you don't want to talk about with quality of life from the city's perspective.
Gary, Scott, anything you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it's just inherent. It's here. For us at Hydro Flask, we can get caught up in working and staying busy and growing the business. And for us, it's important. We twice a year try to get the team out and really enjoy what's happening here. So we did a work party for CODA, which was awesome. And if you ever want to maybe skip a week's worth of boot camp classes, grab the Pulowski and do 30 minutes of that, for CODA. And it's, I think I'm still sore. And then a day at Bachelor. And stuff like that really kind of cements our team and our roots here in Central Oregon, giving back, being outdoors, fun to build a trail and ride it, a week later and say our team helped create this. So a lot of it's just making sure you take advantage of what's here and not take it for granted or forget it's here. Take the time to enjoy the resources we have.
Hey, real quick from the audience out here, we're heading into close to 6:15 per se. Todd, if you're open to this. Want to highlight and spotlight a few folks who might have comments and questions back and forth with us in a conversation. And I'll be the one to put you on the spot, Robert. I specifically invited you early on because I was so excited about this subject matter. And part of why it was so exciting to invite you, and I made subsequently, because of how our conversation went, several other phone calls with folks that are here in the room. But you've made a complete lifestyle change by taking on a product and a way to reach the outdoor industry. Do you mind just quickly saying who you are, what your industry is, and briefly what you did, and what maybe from here a question you might have or something that's impacted you?
My name is Robert, and I'm actually a pharmacist, and I started a bike rental company, and we deliver bikes to hotels and vacation renters in town, people that wouldn't have normally had an opportunity to get on bikes and go mountain biking or do the Bendale Trail, etc. And so, yeah, I'm making a career change, and it's been very fun so far. We're pretty new, and so yeah, what we've done.
I put you on the spot. How about any questions you might have for him regarding this lifestyle change and starting up a whole business? Carolyn, or you with the outdoor work, Scary, or any of that?
Well, I mean, one comment that came to mind for me is it doesn't really matter whether you're the outdoor industry or the tech industry. We all come here for the outdoor lifestyle. And we've learned a lot from tech and what they've done in what we're doing in forming the outdoor works. But it's the same DNA, the same people that come here, and Bend has attracted a very interesting, friendly, group of people here that think outside of the box, and it's just very exciting, the synergy that is created in Bend through all this.
So as you're talking, I'm thinking, of course we have a bike delivery service for hotels and vacation rentals in Bend. I mean, that would, that just seems like, but we didn't before, obviously. But so the first joking questions came to my mind was, how easy was it for you to set up your business, and did you pay your Bend business license?
You don't have to answer that here tonight.
I'm totally kidding. But I think what it shows me is that we have so much. You ask, in my position, or Carolyn, what did you do today? How many businesses did you bring to Oregon, or how many businesses did you bring to Bend? And so much of it is happening organically. We're just trying to get out of the way, but at the same time trying to figure out what support these businesses need. So you may not have needed any support, obviously, to get up and running, but if you want to grow to the next level, what support infrastructure do we have here to let you do that? And we don't know what the next level is, but we hopefully have the people here who can help you figure out what you want to do. The other thing is if you don't want to grow, that's perfectly fine for us too. And so just having this be an environment where we can grow businesses, where people can decide to never have an employee or to try to have 100. But no matter what they decide to do, we have that support to let them do that.
I know we also have in the room Kealoha Paddles tonight with us, another industry that has grown, that we're familiar. Aren't they around here somewhere? Hopefully awake still. I remember that, and the whole family. Dave, any comments that you might want to have, you or Melanie?
No, not really. Well, our situation's a little bit different. You know, we moved here, I believe, in like 91 or 92. We bought our first house for $106,000. The reason we moved here from Hawaii was we couldn't afford to buy a home in Hawaii. I mean, we basically had to leave. So there were certain advantages to Bend. One of them was an appreciating market. We knew that we could bail out of this place. We'd probably get our money back for our house that we put down. But it was really affordable to live here. And I guess one of the challenges we have now is it is becoming not such an affordable place to live. So Carolyn's comments about affordable housing for the people who work in this town are very close to my heart, because basically I don't run with the CEOs of the world. I run with those dirty, grubby guys who live in their Subaru and wait on tables. And so, anybody got any solutions?
Thank you, Dave. Solutions? I don't see any city councilors in the room. I know that issue's coming up tomorrow night, so it might be on you, or I see Skidmore in the room, but I won't put him on the spot too openly.
You know, one thing I wanted to say kind of on that note is the outdoor industry runs on passion. And Kealoha is a good example of a company that flourished in the Depression. And the reason people bought into their product and their company was because of the passion for the sport. And they were growing triple-digit numbers during the worst economy in our last 100 years. The snow industry is another great example of, you know, snow trumps economy. If you've got a bad economy but a good snow year, your businesses are still doing good. Now, if you have a bad economy and a bad snow year, you start to see fallout. But you know, it's companies like that that can flourish in tough times, because people will still find a way to spend on their passions. And you know, kind of to address Dave's point there, yeah, affordability is important. If you look at all the resort towns of Sun Valley and all the ones in Colorado, the service workers don't work there. They live 30 miles down the road in a trailer. And we've got to avoid that. And the 4 biggest obstacles I see to the industry flourishing in Bend is shipping and logistics. You know, you have product that comes from overseas, it's got to be shipped over here. If you're shipping from here versus Portland, it's 1 extra day in transit for shipping. Our shipping costs are higher. Number 2, access to capital for outdoor companies. Right now, tech is kind of the favored investment in the investment circles, and product companies, not just outdoor, but product companies are struggling to get capital investment. It's a little bit more expensive to travel here, but not that bad. I mean, if I'm going to Europe for a trade show, it's going to cost me $300-400 more than the guy from Portland. That's worth living here. But affordable space is definitely one of them, and it's not just for the entry-level workers to be able to afford to live here, which is definitely important, but it's finding retail and warehouse space that can be affordable at competitive rates.
So now that Gary talked, you got me a little bit of time to think about our answer on affordable housing. But Jamie's right. We are looking at continuing some of the funding that we have for affordable housing tomorrow night. It's the city council meeting. But right now, we can't build enough multifamily housing to fill the demand. So I don't know how often any of you drive on Boyd Acres Road, but there's a brand new lots of unit housing, multifamily housing going up across from Geldwin, and every single one is already leased. That basically means we have 0 multifamily housing, 0 rental housing at any minute. You don't even have to advertise for openings in your apartment buildings at this point. So we really need, as part of our economic development strategy, a better one for affordable housing. A lot of this work will happen with the urban growth boundary expansion, which we all know will not happen fast enough. But it also will happen when we start to think about affordable housing and workforce development as part of economic development. So often that gets left out of the conversation. So I am continuing, John is here, he can tell you, I'm continually bringing that part of economic development into the conversation, but it just won't change fast enough.
And it is an incredibly important part of the conversation, Carolyn. I appreciate you bringing it up, and I also appreciate, Gary, the list of 3 or 4 items that you referenced right before that, because my next question, and you both afforded me a great segue, so what I may do is jump to this end and start kind of with Scott and Carolyn M. It's kind of like being in kindergarten again, it's Carolyn M and Carolyn E. But in all seriousness, there's so many facets to answer the question, are we ready? It is about transportation, it's about infrastructure, it's about affordable housing, it's about taxation. It's about access to land, and it's about workforce availability. It's about education. And I mean, you mentioned, Carolyn, earlier that there were certain goals that this city, that this region had in terms of addressing some of the transportation bottlenecks. And you've done a masterful job, obviously, with the Parkway. Education being something you wanted to focus on. COCC, the Culinary Institute, and now the OSU Cascades campus. And now having a 4-year program in leisure and hospitality back at the OSU Cascades campus as well. You set out some goals. This is a community that's obviously shown that if they set those goals, they're going to focus on going after them. So given all those aspects, and kind of given the list that we saw here, Scott, where do you see work needs to be done to be ready for what I think most people feel is going to be kind of that next growth spurt? Travel and tourism is growing, outdoor recreation and the interest in that is growing. We know the quality of life is here. What's lacking so that we can be ready?
Yeah, so I think a big one, at least from HydroFlask standpoint, is just talent and getting the people that we need as a team to grow. And one of the things that we look at with interest is this OSU Cascades and the creation of the types of engineers and product designers and others that can come straight out of school and maybe be working as interns and maybe working on school projects with professors and testing products in labs and that gets me excited in terms of the opportunity to collaborate with education and attract workers straight out of college. At the higher level, it's something we've had some success on. I think it's a movement. It's not something I think industry could look at government and say, government, make this happen. And it's hard for government to say, well, industry, you get your act together and network better and do this. I really do think it's a movement and everyone works together. It's not always been perfect. There's been a lot of learning, but that's how you make progress. And the example that I have that worked out well for us for recruiting and talent was directly a result of the collaboration with the Outdoor Roundtable and EDCO and industry. So our VP of Marketing and Product that joined last November, he was part of the companies that got outreach to by EDCO and part of the Outdoor Roundtable. Hey, you should move your business to Bend. He's like, well, I was at Steamboat. Or at Smart Wool and Steamboat way back when. I really miss those times. I'm here in Seattle and Bainbridge, okay, but I want to get my family back to an outdoor community. Tell me more about Ben. Tell me more about this initiative. And he took a proposal. So he was a GM of Reddington. This is a part of Farbanks. It's a fly fishing holding company, a couple brands like Sage and Real Lines. He sat down with the owners. He's like, I got a great business case to make our brand more authentic, to take it to Ben. This is great. We're being embraced. There's a lot of resources here, more than meets the eye. And they turned them down. They said, no, Seattle, we have a lot of resources. There's Stanley and PMI, there's a lot of outdoor brands, Eddie Bauer, et cetera. We're perfectly fine here. So, a week later, when the recruiter hits him up at Outdoor Retailer and says, hey, there's this great company in Bend, they're looking for a VP of Marketing Product, would you be interested? He's like, hell yes, I would be interested because I've already started to warm up to this idea. And he'd come here, he'd done the tourism, he'd rented mountain bikes. He and his wife went up and rode Phil's Trail. He went to REI, he bought a Coda. HydroFlask before we got into the REI store here in Bend. We were in 27 stores. So Coda, I think, one of the nonprofits got us into the local store. he got exposed to our product, was blown away by it. So it's really this collaboration of lots of things that came together. And for us, our board was stunned that we can attract talent like this. This is amazing. And it was a testament as much to Ben and the collaborations already happened as it was to just, our company and some of the things that we could offer. So that's a big part of it. And just, the collaboration we can do with education, the networking we can do in terms of talent. We're a bit different. We moved our warehouse to Portland a couple of years ago. We outgrew the space we're in. We outgrew the ability to put containers in people's garages and things like that. So for us to kind of come backwards, it feels like the horse has left the barn a bit. So that's not so bad. I do like what's happening in terms of air travel, what it was done to get American in here and open up more avenues for travel. We fly people in, we put people up, entertain them. This is good for us. But really, our thing's really been talent and making sure we continue to grow and get the talent that we need.
Okay. Carolyn, any thoughts?
What I think wrote down is again, I think it's important that I don't know as much about Central Oregon and sort of what you're doing around the affordable housing and around the education. Obviously, I know about the OSU Cascades campus and those issues. But I think another good opportunity is to make sure to talk to other regions and other communities about sort of what they're doing. And there might be some way to kind of have some best practices discussions. Again, I work more in the Gorge, and Hood River is sort of in the same situation where a lot of the people who work there can't afford to live there. And they're actually looking at a gorge-wide initiative. Gorge-wide means both Oregon and Washington, to have housing loans available for people that wouldn't qualify for low-income housing, but need help to be able to afford that kind of housing. So there's some good models around it. I think the more we can share as a state and as a region, the better off we'll be.
We have a question from the audience, if we could please. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Alistair Patterson, and my concern focuses on the subject of affordable housing. I would agree with all of the panelists that the lure of Bend is undeniable. We do move here, indeed, for all of the wonderful recreational opportunities that it offers. I see many people nodding their heads. But I think there's a curve, there's a point where you begin to kill the goose, the golden goose. I know we've done that literally in Bend, but just figuratively, that's a problem for all of us, because in our rush to provide everybody with affordable housing, which we recognize as a big need, we compromise the standards of that housing. I drive Boyd Acres Road, and I happen to live on a ranch on the east side. I see the type of developments that are happening, and quite frankly, they're nothing for us to be proud about. Even though they fill an immediate need, in the long term, all we're building is transitory housing. And I think we are significantly detracting from our long-term appeal. And I'd like to ask Carol, is this a subject of debate at the higher levels? Because in our rush to fill this need, all I see are some very significant compromises.
Yeah, I actually would agree with you wholeheartedly. We just had a conversation in City Hall earlier this week that said, oh my, like the quality of the housing that's being built in Northeast Bend versus being in North or South or Northwest Bend is drastically different. I mean, I have friends in the building industry who have walked away from projects because they didn't feel like the quality of the housing was up to the standard that they wanted to build. So I think it's a mix, Alistair, for sure. It's a combination of providing that housing, but then also providing the employment that allows for upward mobility. So I want people to be able to move off, Southeast Wilson into a Northeast subdivision as they move up that social mobility ladder, and we need to do that with employment. So it's a combination of things. I don't think it's solely an affordable housing solution. I don't think it's solely a workforce and training solution. It's about building our economy all together so that we can move people through. And I think one of the ways one way, a million different ways, but one of the ways that we're looking at is doing that is in terms of building the employment opportunities for people is looking to see what's working for one industry and how do we apply that to the next focused industry. So the one I keep using because it seems like a good example is all the work that we have done in building that entrepreneur ecosystem, and how do we then apply that support network to other industries so we can continue to build middle wage and living wage and a little bit more than living wage jobs so that people have that opportunity. So we don't have to keep building Section 8 housing, we can continue to build, better housing. So I don't know if that answers your question, but it's definitely been something that has come up in conversation as we see the building back on the booming, back booming.
We have a few questions left in the audience, and I know we're getting close on time. And what I do want to offer is those of you in the audience who saw the time frame end at 6:30, if you'd like to, or need to leave now, we won't be offended. That is how it was advertised. But we have come to learn, depending on the subject matter, that sometimes it just takes a little warming up to get the room going and the conversation to continue. So we're going to continue forward at this point. We won't be offended if you need to get up. I want to make note, there are several people, yeah, see, he's got work to do. He's got paddles to make. But I want to point out on your note, there are several outdoor entrepreneurs here in the room with us tonight, Carolyn, and to all of you, and to Todd, who may have a comment or a question. I didn't get to check everybody in, but Dan McGarrigle might be here, Melanie from Pine Mountain Sports, Melanie Fisher from Cog Wild, and several of you that I met just in passing with your own products. So I want to make sure we hear from you and that the other key questions you came to this town hall for are addressed. And in the meantime, I have a gentleman, Harold, come up and introduce yourself, who has a question for you.
Thank you. My name is Harold Cecil. I own a company based here in Bend called Giant Loop. We make adventure-proof packing systems for motorcycles. I've been honored as a participant in the Outdoor Roundtable, and I guess my question to you all is, how do you define the outdoor industry? And one of my observations has been that many of us who have been invited to participate in the roundtable actually come from really distinct segments that have all been sort of put under this outdoor umbrella. And there's human-powered recreation, which is hiking, etc., that outdoor retailer focuses on, and so on. There's also more traditional hunting and fishing as a sort of completely separate segment. And then there's the segment that I'm focused on, which is really power sports. And these three segments are kind of like oil and water. They don't really mix. And even though we share customers across all of these segments, I'm just sort of curious to see how you see that stuff breaking down and how you define it and what the priorities are.
I'll start with that one, I guess. So at the state, we tend to be inclusive. If people want to be part, if a company or a business wants to be part of the outdoor gear and activewear, we welcome them. Most of our trade shows, the two trade shows that I participate in the most here are Outdoor Retailer and the SHOT Show. So basically, I call Outdoor Retailer kind of the kayaking and hiking, and then SHOT Show the hooks and bullets, if you will. So more the hunting and fishing. But there's getting to be more overlap on those as well. So Outdoor Retailer now has a fly fishing pond and those kind of things. So I think it tends to be more about how different businesses select themselves. We can use NAICS codes, industrial codes, and say, here's how I come up with my numbers about businesses and those kind of things. But we're pretty inclusive. If a business wants to be involved, we say, come join us.
What about you, Gary? You have a comment to this? Isn't that part of why you segued?
Yeah, sure. Harold, I think that's a great point. And that's something we're looking at Bend Outdoor Works, and we've definitely talked about at the roundtable. But you include all these companies in outdoor, and you really look at it from their distribution channels. If they're outdoor, they're more of the OR company. If they're the hunting, fishing, they're hook and bullet. We forgot SIA, Snow Sports Industry of America, the ski and snowboard people. You've got Action Sports, which is surf, skate, and snow. They're all in their own target market, and they have their own distribution channel, but there's some very fundamental pieces to the formula that are the same for all of them. And we try to be very inclusive with the outdoor works as well. I mean, we're focusing more on the human powered because that's where our expertise with the board comes more from the OR, the SIA, the action sports world. But it's kind of same shit, different shirt, you know what I mean? And that's how we look at it. There's a formula to making a successful product company, whether you are in motocross or in snow sports. And there's a certain formula and pieces and infrastructure that you need to be successful in all those categories. And that's something we talk about a lot, is everything's kind of lumped into outdoor. Even though under outdoor, you probably have 6 different sectors within outdoor, but they're all important.
And just one other thing to add to that, because I think, if you want to have a good debate on this, come join one of our board meetings or, one of our marketing and product planning meetings, because there's a lot of discussion here. Going to like the Outdoor Industry Association, some of their leadership conferences, and there's a big discussion, almost kind of a wake-up call, that the definition of outdoors is changing. And just when we kind of all agree what it is, like there's a whole new market that's coming forward, and they don't relate to the way the industry's been set up. Their definition is outside. It's not outdoors. Outdoors, they still in cell phone range, and maybe a growler and friends around a picnic table. That's their outdoor experience, not necessarily, summiting South Sister and doing things that are more hardcore per se. So certainly that's something that I think, the industry has to be a bit more open-minded. It's how do consumers engage with us as an industry or as manufacturers, and it's a moving target.
Other questions or comments from the audience? Your thoughts about whether or not Central Oregon Bend is ready, or any questions you might have for the panel?
Something you want to share about your own experience. There we go.
Thank you. Gary, my question for you, you started off talking about a new incubator, said it was Outdoor Works. Would you mind talking a little bit about that, what the offer is there?
And could you introduce yourself for us too, please?
Thank you, Bertie, for the chance for the shameless plug.
Never mind.
Will you keep that mic close to you there, Gary?
Yeah, so the Bend Outdoor Incubator, as I said, was formed, kind of through us seeing the needs that the local companies and the companies across the board, whether they be, Giant Loop and Motocross or Hydro Flask or Blackstrap or a lot of these different companies, that they all have pieces of the puzzle that they have and that they don't have, and to try to put those together. So we formed a group to help mentor and to share resources with up-and-coming emerging companies. And it was founded by myself and 6 other people who a lot of you know. Eric Mead from Opportunity Knox, and who had been with Entreprise prior to that. Rick Fredlin from Silly Pine, and Rick was with Patagonia prior to that. Sanders Nye, formerly from K2, Morrow, and Ride. Justin Ray, formerly from Play Outdoors. And Howard Allred, who was the former CFO at Specialized Bikes and was head of Nike European Finance at one time. So what we formed was, like I said, to really help find the resources for these people, what pieces they're missing, be mentors to help them not make the mistakes so many other people have made, and to help them put those pieces together. Some of the things that we're looking at, obviously, is mentoring and a program similar to what Founders Pad is doing, and Founders Pad and the tech community have been great with helping and sharing what they've learned. We're looking at shared space facilities to help people, get into that first office and not have to spend $2-3 grand for their office buildings. And we're also looking at probably one of, I think, the best pieces of infrastructure would be a 3PL or a third-party logistics here in town. Because basically there isn't one in town. So if you have product that you need to ship, you either send it to Portland and use a 3PL that ships it all over the world for you there, or as Kealoha and Roughware have done, you invest the time and money in your own shipping department, which can be a huge learning curve. You can make a lot of mistakes along the way, and it's fairly expensive. So we're, looking to try to bridge that gap for these companies and help make them sustainable, viable companies. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the opportunity.
We have another question here in the audience. Go ahead and introduce yourself and who you're with, please.
Hi, I'm Steve Curley with the Small Business Development Center, and we work with a lot of small businesses, a lot of startups in, we see a lot of companies in the outdoor industry. We've, worked with Harold over a period of time, and one of the things from my perspective as these companies are coming in is the opportunity to actually manufacture here in Central Oregon or even in Oregon. And I'd like to hear some comments around what those opportunities are. I know, Scott, your product is partially or maybe mostly manufactured overseas, but do we have opportunities within the community to actually manufacture here?
I'd love to address that. The interesting thing, it depends on the industry. The apparel industry left the United States 20 years ago, but San Francisco and Seattle are now making inroads on trying to bring some sewing facilities back to the United States. The interesting thing I find, I think, Harold, you do your own sewing, correct?
Yes, everything's made in USA.
And there's about a half a dozen. Tosh Roy, are you here? You do your own sewing in town, right?
But not in Oregon.
Pardon?
Not in Oregon,
Oh, you don't do, you sew in California, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, but, I'm talking about sewing was moved overseas 20 years ago. And now there is a movement to bring some sewing back to the United States in San Francisco and Seattle. They're trying to make a really big push for it. There's about a half a dozen different small companies in Bend that are doing their own sewing, apart from each other. And I look at opportunities where those people could come together as a resource and share their facilities, so that instead of having peaks and valleys in your production like this, that you're current, that you're, have a steady flow. So yes and no. It depends on the industry, and definitely some industries are better set up overseas or elsewhere, but that's part of the big mission here, and I'd love to see more domestic production and more facilities like that in Central Oregon. But that's a big undertaking.
Yeah, and for Hydro Flask, there's just things we're looking at. Costs are going up in China. There's a lot of risk. Small companies that are working with China, it's a lot of work to manage it, to manage the risk, to hope you're being taken care of. So tomorrow I get a 3:15, so I catch a flight to Hong Kong. I'd rather drive, to Redmond, and be done with that travel if we could. So we look at it. We have some products. We have an engineer heading over to Portland. There's a plastic injection mold manufacturer. As we bring a sports cap back into the marketplace, our intention is to build it here in Oregon. So it doesn't require us to ship large containers, attach it to steel, piggyback on a huge investment that has been made in China to do the steel bottle manufacturing. And we're excited with that. That's kind of a new chapter for us. Costs will be more expensive, but lead times are lower. It's easier for engineers to work, with someone's a couple hours away, same time zone, same language, and so forth. And it's a big thing for us. I think for a lot of companies that manufacture primarily in China, just what's going to happen there over the next 5-10 years. You see China outsourcing to other countries in some of these industries. So things are changing. We look more globally as to, do we want to have all of our eggs in one basket? Where else might we manufacture? Where is this infrastructure in place? And sitting next to Clean Canteen and Stanley guys, we have fantasies of, well, couldn't we collaborate and have this stuff made in Detroit? Empty factories everywhere, like, couldn't we fire this stuff up again and combine our volumes, and would this make sense to explore? I don't know. I think these things are possible. I think for Hydro Flask, the volumes that we're producing now, it'd be hard to see it here in Central Oregon. It's a pretty big check to write and a fair amount of time to ramp that up. And I read that Whirlpool's struggling to bring things back, and they're having Otis Elevator was struggling, and they're missing earnings calls, and they're having challenges, and they're part of United Technologies. It's like, okay, how would we ever do that? Certainly would be simple, but we're exploring that. That's something that's top of mind for us.
Other questions or comments from the audience?
I wanted to share real quickly, if we're about to wrap it up one way or another, and maybe some of you already read this on the website, but speaking to this industry, just some fun facts. Did you know Americans spend nearly as much on snow sports, 53 billion, as they do on internet access, 54 billion, according to the Outdoor Industry Association. Some food for thought around here in Central Oregon, but the one that really made me laugh, more American jobs depend on trail sports, one of our highest industries in the outdoor recreation area here in Central Oregon. More American jobs depend on trail sports than there are lawyers in the US. So we might be safe out there, just FYI. Just a reminder that this economy, the growth of outdoor recreation overall, let alone the products, the business, the manufacturing, the retail, the innovation, grew during the recession. And I know you brought that up to start us off today, Todd, and Gary and Carolyn, both Carolyns, reiterated that. And you proved your point with the successes of Hydro Flask, Scott. But I'd be curious when you walk out of here tonight, what it is that motivates you to continue to grow this industry and how you can look together to one another to this next call of action. Who's going to take charge? Is it Gary and Edco and Carolyn and groups of you that segue? What's the burning question on the table next for this group? Besides, are we ready? What's the burning question we need to be asking ourselves and moving forward with? Maybe 30 seconds if each of you want to comment, or who would want to.
You know, so I see this as, like, you talk about talent, but you know, people have a choice where they can live, and for all of us, this is, as a region, you know, we're in a war for talent. We're up against Ogden, Utah, we're up against, you know, parts of Colorado. If we're talking about outdoor industry, we really have to work together and you know, support each other. So it's whether it's networking, it's collaborating, you know, giving back in terms of trying to publicize how great a place this is and recruit companies and so forth. A lot of it's self-serving. If the talent's here, it's easier for us to grow. We have lasting jobs that are for manufacturers that pay good wages. We have less, you know, cyclical ups and downs with what's happening in development, what happened last time. So I see it as it's good long-term for the community. It's something everyone, you know, starts now. Are we ready? We better be. The other states, other regions are ready. You know, are we going to bring our A game? And it's really everybody's job. Support local business. You know, be part of it. You know, give back. Talk up Bend. Get people to come here. You know, whatever you need to do. This is what's making things work for us.
And I guess my expectation of the next kind of burning question would be along the lines of how do we do more and continue to be as strong as we are and can be, in a way we want to. Again, Central Oregon has a perception of who they are and what they want to be, and you need to protect that as well. So how do we continue to grow smartly, I guess, and how do we work together to make that happen?
So one of my very short-term goals is to build the investment pool. So the only way that we can continue to attract talent for Scott is to make it safer for that talent to come here. If it doesn't work out at Hydro Flask, do they have another job? And the way that we do that is to build companies. And the way we need to do that is we need some capital, and we need some venture catalysts or some angel investors to start to put their money into some of these local companies. And so for the last 6 months, I guess, mostly because Gary's brought it to my attention, but we need to figure out if there's a local investment pool, or how do we tap into other investment pools to see that Central Oregon outdoor companies are safe and really good investments.
How about that?
Community involvement. You know, all of us banding together, sharing our resources. You know, I mean, Scott has probably been one of the biggest supporters of the Bend Outdoor Works and what we're doing. You know, both the Carolyns have been behind us and supportive. But yeah, we've got to put our money and our actions where our mouth is. And if we really want this, we need to support it. And it's a bit of a disjointed community. And as far as the outdoor community, and we have to bring it together and let people know that it's here and it's viable and it's what Bend should be about.
And Todd Davidson, how about you? 30 seconds or less, your words of wisdom about this burning question.
they've answered the right burning questions, I think. So let me use my 30 seconds this way. As you could be sitting here right now wondering this "are you ready" question and contemplating this idea of are we really ready, or are these problems so formidable that we're going to have some real problems here? What I do know is this: with the questions that have been asked here and the questions you're already ruminating over, what you have that a lot of other places don't, and Scott mentioned what some of those other places are in terms of your competition, is you have a spirit of collaboration. You've got leadership that's in the room from your nonprofit associations that are here to support you, like the Central Oregon Visitors Association and your Chamber of Commerce and Visit Bend. They're here in the room with you tonight. You've got your elected officials, and you have those that are working for state and city and county government that are here in the room with you, eager to collaborate with you. The SBDC is here in the room with you, eager to collaborate, wanting to learn from you. So those of you that are in the room from the private sector, wanting to grow your business, wanting to seek that talent, you've got a spirit of collaboration here that is not found in many other places. So nurture that. Do not take it for granted. Let it be what it is, and that is that you may have some family squabbles from time to time, but also remember nobody picks on your sister but you. So, let those be family squabbles, but then move on from them, and it'll prove to be a very powerful thing for you. I love the fact that I saw Good Morning America report a couple of months ago where they were doing job fairs in Santa Fe and Austin, asking why they were working so hard to keep local talent in Santa Fe and Austin. And the response was, because we're sick and tired of losing our best talent to Oregon. That's a good sign. So Jamie, I'll kick it back over to you.
Well, it looks like we have somebody who's warmed up, has a quick comment. If you have a mic for Todd, I'll give you a chance. Introduce yourself and your business.
Hi, I'm Melanie with Cogwild, and I just wanted to kind of jump on what you're saying as well. There's a lot of talk about businesses going on, but what brings people here is a recreation, and that's definitely something that we need to be focusing on. I mean, we're trying to raise money for the Bend Paddle Alliance to put in the paddle park, or what it's called, and CODA is building 12 miles of new trail to add to the visitor center.
Say what CODA is. We've said it all night.
It's the Central Oregon Trail Alliance. So it seems like there's a lot of talk about bringing business here, but we really do need to be cultivating what is bringing people here, and just bringing that up and making sure that all the things that we're trying to do make happen are at the forefront as well. Mountain biking is what I do, and that's one of the biggest sports that brings people here. And so helping CODA as best they can is great. So
you're sure right it is. There's a fact also on this that we put out on the website. Americans spend more on bicycling gear, you like that, right? And trips than they do on airplane tickets and fees. Just FYI in America. So it's a big industry out there, but we've got a wonderful collaboration with our partners with COVA, Visit Bend, SBDC, Chamber, and all of you. But Gary, Carolyn, Scott, and Todd, thank you so much all for being here for us tonight. Big round of applause to each and every one of you. I'm sure you can stick around for questions. Please fill out the survey at the back of the packet and turn it in to our fine ladies at the front, or one of us. And we hope you'll join us again one day.